Hello and welcome to episode 4 of Lessons of a CEO, the podcast that brings you the stories and strategies of the world's top executives. I'm your host, Ross Hewitt, and today we have a special guest and our first in the insurance industry. We welcome Virginia Tutino, the Vice President of Global Insurance for AtkinsRéalis, a powerhouse global Canadian engineering firm with a market cap of nearly $7 billion. Virginia is a dynamic force in the world of insurance and risk management. As a licensed broker, an expert in business law, she oversees an impressive international portfolio, and her work spans multiple high-stakes industries such as aerospace, rail and transit, and renewable energy. Virginia's impact is global. She's been a key player in major projects like the REM Light Rail Transit in Montreal, the Air Train at JFK International Airport, and Las Vegas Monorail. Her strategic and innovative approach to managing complex insurance needs sets her apart as a true leader in the field. With fluency in 4 languages and a knack for finding creative solutions, Virginia brings a wealth of experience and a fresh perspective to the table. Get ready for an exciting conversation as we dive into her journey and explore her insights on risk management and uncover what it takes to lead in a multinational environment. Welcome, Virginia.
Hi, Ross. Thank you so much. That was such a kind introduction. Thank you.
No, absolutely, absolutely. Well, your background is impressive. I always like to kick off and start with the story of how I've met the guest and how it came to be. And ours is kind of an interesting story because we've been connected over the last couple of years as NBC Group did some work with SNC Lavalin at the time. And we'd exchanged lots of emails, followed each other on LinkedIn, but never had the opportunity to actually connect. And this is really the first time we're doing that.
Yes. Good time.
Absolutely. So, yeah, thank you for doing that. One of the first things I wanted to kick off with was tell us a little bit about yourself, sort of where the story originated. I know you have a background in law, and our listeners would be keen to hear how the journey began.
Yes. Okay. Where do I start? I have a background in law. I'm a lawyer by trade. I essentially, went to law school, did my articling in a national company. And once I finished that, I knew I wanted to do more international. I've always been very international, traveler, world traveler. I've always loved traveling, meeting new people. So I decided to go and do. I decided to apply to go do an exchange with the Government of Foreign Affairs of Canada. They were offering international exchanges back then, and it was rare because we didn't see much international exchanges like you see students now. It's very different, but back then it was a little less frequent. So it was kind of exciting. I applied, and finally I got to go work for a law firm in Panama. And
wow.
It was a great experience, honestly. It wasn't a law firm. It was not I was always not very law firm. I was more private. I was not very into private practice, but that was quite an experience. And it was very similar to what private practice we have here, right? It wasn't very different. But what I realized when I was there is that I really loved like the transportation world, the international world, the trade world. It really gave me a different perspective on what was out there. And I'm an insurance child to begin with. My dad was an insurance broker. He had his own insurance firm. So I kind of knew insurance, but this is like another dimension because I got to discover captives while I was in Panama. I understood what they were. So really give me a broad perspective as to what international type of practice would be like.
That's a really interesting point. I always like to take a quick pause when I hear something I find of value. And it's a common theme in my career. It's a common theme actually in the last few guests I've had is that international piece. Now, I'm not saying in order to have a successful career, you have to go and do things outside your country. But I think exploring the world and taking opportunities does give you a much broader perspective and insight to what is out there. Like, for example, I went to New Zealand to help assess earthquake damages. I'd never done that before. And then I found the world of insurance. So you could argue, like, had you not taken those steps, and similar to yourself, you said it wasn't common at the time to do that international experience piece. And so seeking that out, I guess, was the foundation of how you navigated the next steps.
Absolutely. Absolutely. When I got back, I knew that I wanted to do something involving more international, different countries, different people. So what I did, I went back to school. I went to do a master's in business law, focused on international. Again, I did law again, knowing that eventually I didn't know what trajectory I was going to take, to be quite honest, but I knew I wanted to explore that side a little more. And as I was finishing my master's, I got approached by Bombardier. So Bombardier had just acquired a company called Atrans. So that meant that they were getting more into the O&M space, in the rail O&M space, and they were looking for essentially someone who could do risk management, insurance, but with a legal approach to it.
Got you.
So,
Which is very valuable because again, people often don't connect the fact that insurance is actually all legal contracts, and those expertise are critical.
No, exactly. So they actually were looking for that because they were going to be doing partnerships with similar. I'm working with AtkinsRéalis now, but they were essentially partnering with those type of entities in order to get into design, build, operate, contract types. So this is how I started into the risk management insurance world. I knew a little bit about insurance, but risk management and the risk management part was totally unknown to me.
I have a quick question, because you mentioned something interesting, that your father was a broker, owned a brokerage, so an entrepreneur himself. Were you never tempted or never sort of guided to be the heir apparent in that?
Very good question. So, little anecdote. 6 months before I got into the risk management insurance world, my dad was selling the business. So he had been with us for a long time, wanted to sell. And the first question he asked all of us, are you sure none of you want to take it over? And we're like, no way, right? No way.
Yeah.
And 6 months later, literally 6 months later, I said, Dad, I'm getting into insurance. It was kind of, for him, it was, what happened to my daughter? She was in line, now insurance. I sold the business. So that was quite, it was kind of an interesting situation.
Got you. Yeah. I was just curious on that. But again, timing is everything. Things happen for a reason in that sense. And so you've finished your masters, you've come out. Tell us a little bit about how you came to be at SNC Lavalin. And the reason I bring that up is sometimes we have a lot of younger listeners, university, and they often don't know that insurance represents such a massive market in terms of job opportunities. Almost every category of profession fits into the realm of insurance. But understanding how you even where to begin for them is often not as clear. And so give us a little bit of an overview of how you came to be at SNC Lavalin and how that journey started.
So, after I did a few years at Bombardier, I wanted something different, right? It was, SNC, I got through a friend who had a friend they were looking for someone to fill the role at SNC Lavalin back then. Today, AtkinsRéalis, obviously. So essentially, I joined. I've always wanted to see the other side. So we were the operator, manufacturer, and I wanted to go see beyond the more, we used to call them the bricks and sticks side back then. So I wanted to get on the other side and really get to work with that side as well. So I joined. It's been it's going to be 9 years.
But what did you come in? What did you come in as vice president, or did you come in as another channel? How did that?
No, I basically did a lateral move. I was director of insurance and did a lateral move, joining AtkinsRéalis back then. And with time, we had new management came in, I could say I'm ambitious.
Yes, of course.
There's no shame in saying that I was ambitious, and obviously for me, when I joined was with the the thought of the next step and, the next step. And of course, to get to the next step doesn't just happen, right? You have to make things
No,
happen.
no,
In any
correct.
career, there's work, there's focus. And I was focused, and I knew I wanted to take the next step. And I knew I wanted to manage the department. I wanted to really be, the person who would have the department under me. And I kind of worked towards that.
Yeah,
And I was recognized. My work, I'm grateful that my work, my work ethics, my capabilities were recognized by some people, because sometimes you can do things and they're not always recognized, depends who you fall on, right? But
yeah.
I was lucky enough to be surrounded by people who recognized the work I did and give me opportunities, and I'm grateful for that. And slowly I started taking more and more, and eventually the whole department was the whole insurance department was under my leadership, and that's how it happened.
Well, I have you mentioned some three key
Hmm.
things in there that resonated with me was ambition,
Yes,
right? Because it's not a dirty word. I mean, you have to be ambitious if you want to climb a corporate ladder, if you want to do something different, you want to build a business, you want to do anything well in life. Ambition has to factor in. And the other one was recognition. Now, these all sound like recipes for success, and they sound simple, but they're so often overlooked. Recognition is so important because in any company, and whether you're an SME like ours or a global publicly traded firm, doing great work is one thing, but there is an element, and I hate to say it, but politics, in the sense that the right people need to know you're valuable. And sometimes, often, if that isn't the case, your value isn't noticed. And, the more ambitious individuals understand that it is their responsibility to ensure that it's noticed, because nothing just happens.
absolutely. That's a
And
super good point.
so I just find it really interesting that you mentioned that. And the third one being opportunities. And it sounds a little cliche, but I'm a big believer when people say luck. I'm like, luck is opportunity meets preparedness. You were ready for something, this came along and you did it. So it's not luck, but grabbing opportunities. I think that the ambition, getting recognition for the work and ensuring you do, and then taking the opportunities when they arise. And I mean, that's the literally was my recipe for success. And it sounds like you've had the same.
Yes, and like you said, it's not about, like, you have to make things happen. And recognition, like you said, doesn't matter how hard you work, how good you are, your work ethics. And it took me a long time to figure that out. Also, being a woman, we don't like to put
Mm,
ourselves out there. We're more, low profile. We don't sell what we've done. And I think that's something that you learn as you go. It took me a while to learn. I mean, I've been in the industry for a little while, but you learn how to what is it that you have to do? Who are the people you have to connect with? And also getting out of your comfort zone, right? And
absolutely.
just doing your work is not sufficient, in my opinion. And that's not sufficient for anyone, anywhere. It's like it's at some point you have to get involved. You have to know your industry, have the right network, something I've built. And it takes time and it takes effort. And it's something I love doing. I love building bridges and really connecting with people. So you're right. It's not luck. It's really going out there. But we also need to make people aware of that. And it's something I do. The younger generation, I try to give them the visibility they deserve, and I tell them, go take it, take your space.
Absolutely.
Nobody will do it for you unless you're lucky enough to have good mentors, good sponsors. You need to take your own space.
Sponsors. I love that saying, take your own space. And I'm gonna I'm gonna steal it for a LinkedIn post.
Absolutely.
Um, again, something interesting that's been a theme here. We had the CEO of Agate Laboratories
Mhm.
on as our second guest. Um, Obviously, 1,200 employees, one of the largest labs in Canada. And she mentioned almost the exact same thing that you do. Women in business often aren't as bold and forward with the successes they've had, like
Mhm.
as in they're humble, if you will, but
Yes.
humble to their detriment. And how do you I guess, how do you, I don't know if educate's the word, but as an organization, how do you overcome that? Because it is so critical. And I actually see the opposite problem with men. And two of my companies, EcoClaim and MBC, both have female leaders as CEO and president. And it's the best it's ever been. There's no ego. There's only been confidence, execution, and it's been a real blessing to have them in. And one of the things that they've both said is that often men will just, if someone asks them, can they do a job, they'll say yes and overstate their abilities without really thinking about it. And then often that leads to failure. Sometimes you get lucky. But women do the opposite. Often they overthink or overanalyze, are we capable of doing this job? When more likely than not, they're more than capable. But then I think that's often a barrier we see in the business world. Then you identify that.
Yes, absolutely. And I always, I think we know that it's a known fact. Women need to check all the boxes sometimes to go and take a new position, whereas men, it's a different approach. We're different, right? I think we're made differently, and that's why sometimes also as company we have to recognize that there are differences. Men, women, different people, the diversity, and recognize this. For some people, it's harder, and as good as they are, they may not put themselves out there. So it's up to some of us who really care to bring them forward, to give them that chance. So I always see, when I see people, I've hired 2 people on my team in the last 2 years. They came from different backgrounds. The first one, I said, join us. I saw you have good reflexes, join us. And she was like, I've never done this. I'm like, but I see you're capable. You'll learn. You have the right skills. You have, you're strategic, you're organized, you're bright, and you have the right reflexes. When we have these calls, you're able. And she's like, oh, I don't know. And I brought her in, and now she's doing well. She's left my team. She's doing super well. I'm so happy and proud to see her just like, go out there. And sometimes you have to give people that push. You have to recognize that there is a difference, and it's okay. But you have
100%.
to kind of recognize it as individuals. We need to kind of bring that forward and give the spotlight to these people, and not always the same people. Some people are just naturals, right? They know how to get that attention, the spotlight.
Absolutely.
And some others are not. So,
and I think you mentioned, you said, and there's some other key things in there, sponsors and guiding in your role, and you did give us an example there. Is there any formal process in place, or is it more based on your human interactions, your hiring process, or is there sort of a formal process in place in your team to help sponsor, to help guide, to bring out the best talent?
For sponsorship, you mean? Or we have more structured mentorship. We have a mentorship program that we do formally. So some people, I'm part of that. I like to mentor, but you could also mentor. Doesn't have to be an official term, and sponsor is something that usually comes naturally, right? So as individuals, when we see someone's doing well, we want to help them move forward and get advanced and see them really thrive and shine. So I think it's up to each individual to really sponsor. If they see people that are doing super well, help them along that path.
Absolutely. I mean, 100%. I mean, a leader, that's, again, it sounds cliche again, but a leader's job is to create more leaders. That's how I look at it. And, as we've got our VP that runs our largest division, and he came all the way up from being a consultant over the last 7 years to run in a region, to run in the West, running it all. But again, nothing makes you prouder than, again, they did all the hard work. You just sort of allow the opportunity and trusted in them, but it's just fantastic to see someone deliver on that. Not everyone does, of course, right?
No, not everybody does, but we have to encourage it, and it's by talking about it and making people conscious that everybody needs to contribute in some way in order for things to evolve and keep advancing, and giving the people that have less, that have less space, give them that space.
So one of the questions I had for you, because a lot of our listeners, there'll be a bit of ambiguity around what a VP of global insurance for a company like S&C Lavalin does. So, you show up day one with your team. What function does the team serve, and where do you fit in the project flow chart, if you will?
Yes. Well, essentially, the insurance team, our insurance team, we're mainly based in Montreal. Two of our team members are in London, so we have two team members in London. What we do, we oversee the placement of all of our corporate insurance policies worldwide. We also do projects, of course, and as we know, we have thousands of projects a year, and we do the kind of the review risk management of those projects when it comes to really the insurance. So the team reviews the part of the team, because we have different components to the team. So part of the team reviews RFPs, makes recommendation. We make specific placements, so project specific placements, transfers, make sure our projects are aligned with our governance, our insurance policy. So that's the project side. We also do claims. We do see claims, unfortunately, from time to time, right?
Yeah,
That's
well,
part of it too.
not unfortunately for our business, but yes.
Yes, of course, not for you, for the rest of us. But I mean, claims are part of business. So if we would say there are no claims, and most of them don't materialize anyway, but we do claims management. So the insurance claims management is done
Okay.
through our team, the captive portion as well. So I mean, it's really it's kind of, I would say, split, but we don't work in silos. We all work together. The goal is really just everybody is aware of everything. So I basically oversee that. My main role is insurance relationship, broker relationship, internal relationship, making sure that, I always say it, our role is like we're in between our operation and our external requirements, right? Because
Right.
placing insurance, placing surety bonds,
Everything.
doing everything, you need to kind of cater to what the our external partners require, but we also need to make sure that we're aligned with our clients' requirements and our internal team's requirements. So you're always juggling that,
And
satisfying everybody's needs and keeping everybody happy and aligned, and so we could move forward all the time.
so you mentioned something there that is near and dear to my heart, and anyone in insurance always has a story around this, and I know you may or may not be able to share specifics given the nature of what it is, but you may be able to share it because it's funny. But you mentioned claims management. Now, I've operated in claims for the last 15 years, and give us an overview of one of your more memorable claims that you were involved in, if you're able to, and how that was resolved. I'm sure you've been exposed to some large scale.
I can't go into details but I think our
Oh,
more memorable claims are
maybe
like,
maybe how it got resolved and what was involved in that, rather than the
I think like some claims, because we know you could negotiate some claims and you could have a discussion. Sometimes it's, it could be coverage issues with insurers or with our clients. In my opinion, I've always seen that like this is my life philosophy, is that nobody wants to be going, in different directions. At the end of the day, everybody wants to continue doing business, wants to move forward. So it's finding the way to get people around the table together and discussing about what is it that each one wants, and how can we get to the middle point where everybody gets something out of it, right? I've always said it, because if you talk to litigation lawyers, they're obviously like, everybody's pushing, and you talk to me and I'm like, no, you can't do that. You're in a claim with someone, but tomorrow you're a partner with someone. So how do we all meet? And that's the interest of everybody at the end of the day. This is a small industry. It's a huge industry, like you said initially. It's an amazing industry. There's place for everybody from every background. But it's also a small industry in the sense that everybody ends up knowing each other, and what you do and how you act, your reputation is key. So how do you get to a point where you can you could agree to disagree, but do it respectfully and try to meet somewhere. And if you can't meet somewhere, well, then, then there are different steps. But the key point for me is always like have a discussion with people. Don't have
No,
intermediaries talk for you. Have that discussion with the key stakeholders and see how we can get this forward. And usually most people are logic. Most people want to get
100%.
things done and want to continue business. I mean, if you're in business, you don't want to get stuck over something for years and years. So
No, and again, great lesson and great point there. Insurance, there's often a significant amount of conflict, the nature of what it is. It's usually a disaster has occurred, and so by the very
mm,
nature, there's conflicting parties. And the key to those going well is, as you said, communication and facilitation. And it sounds simple. You said get the parties together, sit down, let's work through this. But you know how many claims and projects occur around the world where that didn't happen,
I know. It sounds
right?
simple, right? Like you said, but it's not that simple, but you have to have people who initiate that. So
Uh,
if people, because often people get in, and I think a lot of pride, a lot of I don't know what it is gets in the way. And sometimes you have to put that on the side and say, okay, in the interest of everybody at the end of the day, because we're all going to be working together again, we're all going to be doing business again. What is bringing those people? And it sounds simple, I agree, but it's not that simple, and
no,
it
no,
takes
it's
a lot of. I think it takes a lot of willingness from all parties and someone who brings
way
everybody together.
100%. Yeah, far too often there's that the guards are up, right? You have to break those down.
Yes, yes.
Um, and one of the areas I wanted to move into a little bit here, and I know AtkinsRéalis is a bit of a leader. I would talk to you about your team around the things you're doing in many areas, but in the realm of sustainability, you're publicly very much a leader and have a big focus. I know you have R&D that explores that. Um, are you involved in anything in terms of the ESG side with AtkinsRéalis, or how do you position that in your world?
Yes, ESG, ED&I, all of this terms that are dear, near and dear to my heart. ESG there are three components: the environmental, social, and governance. I think those three go hand in hand, although they're often treated kind of separately in silos, and all
Right.
three are equally important. If you don't have social, you can't reach your environmental goals, and if you don't have the social, the right people, well, your governance. So governance oversees all of that. And for my
Absolutely.
part, important for me, it's something I think there's a name now. It's ESG. Probably we put a name to it. Some people disagree. It's created a lot of
Sustainability, for me,
yes,
I don't mean for me, I use it as a broad term because
yes,
every company has different strategies and they have
yes,
different pillars of how it fits in. And so I was just curious as to it's a very, very hot topic in the insurance world, as we know now. And
yes.
so I suspect you're exposed to it regularly from both discussions, but also questions posed to yourself.
Absolutely. It's one of the topics I like to discuss when I present to our insurers. It's one of the things I like. I'm
Oh,
really involved in the ED&I side of things within the company, which touch kind of the social portion. So I've been
okay.
lead of the ED&I committee for Montreal. I'm part of the national committee as well. And like I
Well,
say, huge multinational, right? We're in different countries. It's a journey. It's not something that you don't move the boat in one day, but you need people to be committed, and it's step by step. And we're doing really well. If you know us, you followed us. It's been a journey, and things are changing in the right direction. They're going really in the right direction. We've done amazing progress in 5 years. Can any company or anybody say that your ESG goals or your ED&I goals are going to be met in 24 hours? That's a lie. We all know that because it takes time, it takes effort, different jurisdiction, different people, different mentalities. So it's identifying your key objectives and adapting them in each country and focusing on those and moving the boat in the right direction slowly but surely. And I think we've done a pretty good job at doing that over the last few years. I could say that.
you absolutely. I mean, I'm smiling because it sounds like exactly the statement, the story I tell when I talk to people, because there's no magic wand to be sustainable overnight, and you have to take a first step. And obviously, a lot of companies are further ahead, but you don't get anywhere unless you make that first step. And that gradual approach is the only way to do it. And I just found it fascinating and also comforting that you share that value of that journey.
Yes.
So is the committee made up of it? Is it Canadian, or do you have an international committee as well that looks? How does that work?
What you mean for ED&I? For ESG, we have
Yeah,
a chief ESG. We have someone who manage the ESG. We have a team dedicated to that. The same team, the same head of integrity is managing ESG. So that's something that's
got you.
extremely important. It's part of our annual report. You see, we have a sustainability report. I think I saw you mentioned in there at some point. Is
Oh,
it
really?
possible? I think I saw
Yeah,
it. I think
it
so.
it, it might be.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a funny story behind that. Well, I reached out to your president at the time, and it was a bit of a cold reach out, if I'm being honest. I never really worked with him. So he'd just been appointed, um, and so I sent an email saying, congratulations, and we'd done some small projects, and I really just made a bit of a pitch in short and concise. He's busy, and I just said I think there's a value proposition to work together in insurance and help deliver sustainability, bring your solutions to the table. And he must have liked it, and we had lunch and then explored how we work together from there. And so it was I can't say I had a big grand strategy. I was just, yeah, I'm a big believer. If you don't ask, you don't get, and you don't have anything to lose.
Exactly.
So yeah, I'm now gonna have to go read that report in full to find where my name is so I can stick it on the
Your name,
wall,
I
right?
think it was the NBC group I saw.
Yeah,
So
the
it was,
NBC,
it
yeah,
was there. I saw it in the sustainability. So a while back, I saw it. I read it a few months ago, and I'm pretty sure I saw it there. And it was, oh, that's great. I'm gonna tell
yeah. No,
Rob
I'll need.
in there.
I am. I'm gonna look that up for sure. So one thing, one of the last areas I wanted to explore with you is what does the future look like for both yourself and in your role there?
Mhm.
Because you said, I know you mentioned you have a big love of travel. I know you recently were in San Diego at the RIMS conference. How does the future look for the risk world?
Oh, that's a good question. How does the future?
Like, do you have big, large projects coming up? Is there focus on specific areas or regions? What does the strategy look like for you coming?
For the company, it's essentially, I mean, focusing on our key geographies, which is the UK, Canada, and US. Of course, continuing on the same, strategy that we've had over the last few years and continuing performing as we've done over the last year has been an amazing year for us. And I think we've all seen great things happen, and we're continuing on that road to, delivering what we said we were going to deliver. So things are looking bright, and we're getting great people on board, great talent, which is extremely important, and making sure our talent is happy. And at the end of the day, I always say it, it's like ESG, DNI, any of that. You have to walk the talk, right? Because what you do internally, how you're managing your people internally, what you're giving your people internally, for me, it's always been, and that's my own personal quote, it has nothing to do with anybody else. And it's my personal thinking, is that how we treat each other internally, how we do things internally, are a total reflection externally. So if we're doing well
100%.
internally, our clients will know we're doing well externally. Our
Agreed.
shareholders will know. So if you're not doing things right, you need to walk the talk. It's that's the way I operate in life. And if you don't do that, it's going to reflect somewhere that you're not doing things right. So if you're doing things right internally, it's going to show outside. So I think
Absolutely.
we're doing things, always improving, but doing things right now.
No, excellent. And then last question for you. I always like to ask if you have any, we've talked a lot about talent, we've talked a lot about um, uh, bringing up the future leaders in,
Mhm.
your purview, your organization. Do you have any, would you have any last advice for anyone entering the world of risk management? are looking to explore the intersection of industries where risk management meets. Any advice or input from yourself that they might find valuable?
Oh, yes, it's something that is it's a subject that I love to discuss and with my peers and my partners, the talent. Um, we said it initially, there's so much to be offered in the industry. It's just an industry that people don't know much about. It's still kind
Absolutely.
of a secret little gem. And my
I love that.
goal, and I try to do this as often as I can. I'm actually doing this with my own kids right now and my friends' kids. And it's a discussion I have. A lot of people call me for, career advice and where should I go next. So it's something that I think in the industry we need to talk more about. We need to make this industry once we're in it, we know how interesting it is and how fascinating it is. And there's never a dull moment, never a boring day. And that's the reason why I've stayed for so long, right? Because I've had opportunities to go back to legal. And for me, it was always like, oh, am I going to get bored? And the interesting thing is it's an industry where people don't get bored. If you're
Yes.
analytical, there's a job for you. If
Mhm.
you're very business, sales, there's going to be a job for you depending where. If you're an engineer and want to do, you can do risk engineering and you can do risk management. So there are so many opportunities. And I always tell people, and it's funny you say this because I will eventually put it out there, is that if people have questions, like I love mentoring, I love giving people advice and talking to them and just, giving my point of view. You take it, you leave it. Everybody's an adult to decide what they want to do with it. But really putting it out there a little more and seeing, and thinking out of the box too. For companies that are trying to recruit, you need to think a little bit out of the box. I think a lot of people are
Absolutely.
just
Yeah.
going one avenue or just doing the same thing with the same people. There's a lot out there. So we'll
You
talk more
some
about that in the next few months. I think it's a subject that I really love and want to explore a little further because there's so much to be done.
No, there is, and I'm going to round it off with that was a great statement there. I'm a big spreader of this news. That insurance is a secret little gem of an industry. I say little; it represents 7% of the world's GDP,
Yes,
but
yes.
it is a little gem that provides so much variety that
Mhm.
it's almost impossible to find yourself bored, or there's just always new avenues, and it's everyone always sees finance as the sexy industry to go in, thanks to
Mhm.
all the Hollywood movies about it. But insurance offers more
Yeah.
than finance does in terms of opportunity. No, this has been excellent video. I really appreciate you taking the time and telling us about your journey, your role. And I would love to see you give one of those presentations on the ESG side next time you do that, if there's a forum for it.
Sure.
And we'd love to have you on again, maybe with a team member in the future.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Ross. It was great talking to you. Keep doing the great work you're doing. I follow
Thank
you a
you.
lot. I've told you, I think our interests are aligned. So keep,
Absolutely,
keep
yeah.
doing what you're doing. It's great. And thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. Thanks.
Absolutely. And I look forward to seeing you in person
In
soon.
person, yes, Vancouver, 2024, maybe the rooms.
I'm there. We
Okay,
have
great.
booths, so we're
Oh,
definitely going to connect.
absolutely. We're meeting up there then for sure.